Hi, I'm Esther.
And I'm Sean.
I write about AI news here at Tech Target.
And I edit Esther's stories.
We're here to talk to tech experts about everything AI, from open and closed models to AI agents and who's ahead in the generative AI race.
And even the elusive AGI.
We've got it covered, right, Sean?
Yep, we've got it covered.
Okay, hi everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Targeting AI podcast from Informa Tech Target. Today's guest is Saket Srivastava, Chief Information Officer at work management platform vendor Asana. Before Asana, Saket was a CIO at Square.
Thank you so much for joining us today. So we just want to go into your background. How did you get into IT and AI, and what led you to Asana?
By education, I did my undergrad and post-graduation in computer sciences. So right from the get-go, I was into the computer science technology space. Started as a programmer, software engineer. Soon found my way into more services and implementation of package solutions for larger customers. And I've been doing this for over 20 years. Been with Asana for 3+ years as their CIO. And I've got a true dual role at Asana. I am in charge of the technology infrastructure for internal Asanas. And I also spend a fair bit of time with our customers, trying to be that voice of that CIO, that product evangelist for our customers, and try to bring in that feedback into our go-to-market and product strategy as well.
How did Asana's AI strategy, how has it grown or changed since generative AI exploded a little bit over 2 years ago?
Yeah, Asana was thinking about AI way before generative AI became a thing. And really the magic for all of this has been our data model, our work graph data model. So Asana was founded by Dustin Moskowitz, who was also the co-founder of Meta. And uh, fairly early on, he thought of this data model being the differentiator, this secret sauce for us. And it was tailor-made, this data model, which we call the work graph data model. It's tailor-made for collaborative, cross-functional work. The way you kind of think about this is the map of the work that is happening at any organization. And We initially started to think about this from any immediate breakthroughs from the lens of machine learning and natural language processing. Dustin's also sort of an early thinker um, around AI. He partners very closely with other thought leaders in the AI space as well. We've got some board members like Adam D'Angelo, who is the CEO of Poe, also a thought leader around AI. So AI has been in the DNA of Asana for a while. Since Gen AI became a thing, um, Asana was very thoughtful in how do we sort of move forward on this journey. The first thing we did at the start, which was slightly different from many other companies approach this, we started with some principles around AI. How do we want to bring this value of generative AI to our customers? And we were amongst the earlier companies to talk about this human plus AI together, as opposed to AI sort of going on its own. And the other important thing around that principle was humans are eventually accountable for what the AI is doing, right? Started with that. Then we brought in some key capabilities just within our product. Now, if you look back, these are almost expected. When you've got a work management platform which is used by 150,000 plus customers by 80% of the top Fortune 100 companies, uh, you have the data sets for an organization individually, right? And you're able to then uh, do things like smart status or smart chat, wherein you can chat with an AI bot within Asana, and it can query all the data from within Asana and give you recommendations around that, right? Talk to any project manager, program manager, how they think about writing project status reports. It's a burdensome, painful job for them. How about AI sort of working its beauty and summarizing and creating status reports that every project manager, program manager needs to generate every week? So that was sort of the first obvious step into AI. What we've been then since then doing is we've rolled out. In fact, it's going GA in the next few weeks. Um, what we're calling the AI Studio. Now, AI Studio is really an orchestration platform wherein you can create complex workflows, multi-step workflows. Start thinking a little bit around that agentic AI, which is not just doing small tasks for you, but more complex workflows. And you're able to sort of bring in the goodness of AI into that. And even in our early innings before even it's just gone GA, we've got some real good wins from our customers who are getting a ton of value from Asana AI Studio as well.
That makes me kind of wonder, when did you, I guess, start your journey into agentic AI or agents and AI? Was that around the same time when you were thinking about that human plus AI?
Yeah, I think that's just the space has evolved so quickly, so fast. If you think about when Gen AI came out, it was maybe 2.5 years back, right? And what we know now is a lot more things and so much more different than what we knew at that point in time. So for us, this Asana AI Studio was really the inflection point. Yes, we were talking about uh, AI, Asana AI as a teammate. We were not talking about it just being something that you're as a chatbot. We were thinking about this complex workflows that you can build on Asana AI Studio, where you can automate the repetitive work. You can have Asana's AI Studio take on a bunch of work that humans were doing so that the humans could spend their time doing more strategic, more creative work as well. Um, we've got a bunch of customers, as I mentioned earlier, who are getting a ton of value out of this as well. I'll just maybe name one so that you get the context of how sort of this AI studio is coming into play, right? Um, Morningstar is a pretty well known global financial organization that uses Asana at scale. Um, I believe it's about a 2 billion plus in revenue, over 10,000 employees. And their IT team built in Asana AI Studio workflow to evaluate all project requests. And what it did was anytime a new request from across of Morningstar that would come into IT, AI would assess that request against predefined criteria, against and then would generate some discovery questions, just streamlining understanding a request and prioritizing a request and matching it against capacity. And they had pretty magical results against that. Things that would take, and this is them stating, right? The things that would take them almost a month would be done in less than 2 weeks. So the productivity kind of improvement that you see with a platform like this is quite amazing. And again, while we talk a lot about agentic AI and stuff, the magic behind all of this is the data. The data in our work graph data model is what sort of differentiates, because you have the work with the context. So you're not having to pass insane amounts of without context data to the LLMs. You've got a structured way that you captured the work data and you're passing that to AI and you get better results out of that AI.
Why is project management or work management such a good use case or application for generative AI or agentic AI?
Yeah, I'd say that at this point in time, generative AI and AI goes and touches every space, not just work management. It touches every industry. And again, while we're early in our innings, we're starting to see some goodness that's driving meaningful impact. More specifically around work management, the way I would think about this is in the past maybe work was managed more in from within functions in their silos, but over time work has just become more complex. Work goes across multiple teams and multiple functions where there's less of that control from a management or an organizational hierarchy, right? So if you've got important work that is cross functional and you've got that work connected to the strategy or the important goals of the company, and you know that that is just hard to navigate, a platform like Asana would help bring structure, bring clarity to that work, will help bring accountability to that work. And then when you add in the AI lens to that, AI layer to that, you will get predictably better outcomes. So again, think about work management from a lens of you are trying to run the most important priorities that impact and influence your company outcomes, which are very hard, which takes a village, a cross-functional set of teams to go do their thing. You're able to get better outcomes out of those from a platform like Asana, leveraging AI. So that's why I think there's a ton of promise there.
So Asana has a relationship with Entropic, right, and using Entropic Claude. Can you describe how you were able to use Claude to power Asana AI?
So we partner with all the frontier LLM providers, and we ourselves did not go into building those. We were the work management layer, which would connect with the LLM providers, and then the customer gets to also decide which LLM provider would they want to opt in for. So yes, we work with Anthropic, we work with OpenAI. Yeah.
Okay, so you introduced your AI studio last year. Can you tell us what it is, how it was built, and do you use a proprietary LLM or from one of these foundation model providers for that?
Yeah, so we do work with the foundational models out there. We don't have our own proprietary LLM. That is not where our secret sauce is. That's not where our magic is. There's enough investment and innovation happening with the Claudes and OpenAIs of the world, right? So we partner with them. Um, our Asana AI Studio offering, which has been in beta for the last few months and going GA in the next couple of weeks, is really about taking complex workflows and then you can imagine the possibilities across any organizations, right? And I'll give you some that we've done internally as well. Um, Imagine these complex workflows and how you're able to automate them and bring in the magic of AI into them. And so basically, what you're doing is you're orchestrating business processes through a layer of automation and AI, and freeing up human hours um, to have AI Studio do much of that work, and humans can then focus more on the strategic and the more creative. I'll give you an example of something that we've built internally, and it's being adopted quite well. Our go-to-market teams, or let's just say our AEs and our BDRs and our SDRs who spend time researching on customers, right? They have a business process today, or they had a business process which involved identifying the leads that they would want to go to and talk to, doing a ton of research, a bunch of research around from the telemetry that comes from our product, a bunch of research that they would do from what's out there in the web or through LinkedIn and such stuff, right? And that was a time-consuming exercise. And then obviously they go and talk to the customers. We've created a workflow, what we call account POV, point of view, um, and it's just integrated into the workflow of an AE, wherein it automates all of this exercise of collecting this data and parsing through that and summarizing and creating a point of view for a seller. The work that could probably take hours in the past is now at a click of a button for an AE, and how much more efficient they are because of that they can spend more time with their customers, have more strategic conversations with the customers, as opposed to just spending all of that time doing the research. So that's just one example, and there are several more that we've been leveraging.
So Asana AI code, AI Studio is no code, obviously, and many can use it to build AI agents. In your opinion, how does agentic AI differ from RPA, right? Because it was a low code, no code kind of application.
Yeah.
Is How are you guys using it from agentic AI
Yeah,
from
I think
RPA?
there was a lot of talk a few years back around RPA as well. RPA, robotic process automation, for the folks who are listening, right, don't know, was really about replicating a human's activity. So if I was going through an end-to-end application and clicking in a bunch of places and then doing a bunch of things beyond that, RPA would just replicate that, right? Um, Yes, there was some conversation of business process reengineering as part of that, that you don't just automate that and replicate that, you improve that process and then have RPA do exactly what a human would do. And there were some gains with that as well. Uh, Generative AI takes it to a completely different level, right? Now, think about a possibility of not having to replicate what a human was doing, but you're able to reimagine a workforce for the future. Um, Stay with me on this. This is maybe working a little bit into the future. Uh, Reimagine a workforce of the future, which is a combination of humans and AI agents, where perhaps every human like you and me could have our own AI assistant or a coworker or a teammate. Or for your function, you could also have a persona based AI agent, if you will. So sales has a sales copilot, or HR has an HR copilot, finance has a finance copilot, and this copilot or this agent can end up thinking and researching and doing a lot of things that humans would have done and spent a bunch of their time, not just replicating a bunch of things on a screen click, but taking it to a completely different level, and applying that generative AI sort of at massive volumes and context, being able to process that information and provide that intelligence. RPA did not provide any intelligence per se, it was just automating of that work.
That's interesting that you kind of say, well, we're just replicating what has already been done, whereas it's kind of this human, this kind of this intelligence with it. I have kind of a off side note to that, which is like, to you, what is a fully autonomous agent, right? Because we have had this discussion in the I guess in the market, or about what is fully autonomous, what is semi-autonomous. How long do you think we'll get to the point where we have full autonomy with agents and full intelligence?
I think it depends on the use cases. It depends on the industry you're playing in, right? The risks that you're willing to absorb as well, right? There are some use cases wherein I think AI can be fully autonomous even today, right? And there are many where the results are still not where it needs to be. And a great example could be, um, when you go to a doctor now, a doctor is recording the entire conversation, and AI can then summarize and create your post meeting notes, right? And then share it with the patient as well. Will the doctor just have it be fully autonomous? Perhaps not. They still want to review it before they share it with with the patient, right? There might be some other use cases which are low risk, wherein you can still take it all the way end to end as well. And time will tell as we sort of the pace of innovation, as we're all seeing, right? Not in quarters, not in months. Now it's in weeks. The way it's progressing, um, I don't want to hazard a guess too far in the future on how these things will play out, because I'm quite sure I'll be surprised that things are gonna start getting more mature, and the capabilities that are going to be offered will be far beyond my imagination.
So switching gears a little bit into looking at the problems or challenges, what problems or challenges have you had integrating generative AI into your platform?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge or an opportunity that any organization has is, how do you ready up your workforce to be ready to consume and participate in this generative AI world, right? We've got workers who've been working for several years and decades, and this is not a natural um, way to kind of think about how work will happen in the future. So, how do you take people on that journey? How do you make sure that you provide the right training, the right support, the right clarity? Jobs will change. It doesn't mean that all jobs will change, but many jobs will change over time, right? How do you provide that support to your workforce and show them a path on how their skills are still utilized, and we do more with and way beyond what we were able to do, as opposed to it becoming a risk to their jobs, or it becoming a thing that people are trying not to lean towards. What you want to do as leaders at companies is to make sure that your workforce is more ready and leaning into this once in a lifetime, once in a generation sort of transformation.
Do you find that your customers are eager to use agentic AI in the studio, or they uh, do they first have to understand what it is and then implement or apply it?
I again think it sort of depends in where they're, which industry that they play in, and what's their sort of risk appetite. But one thing I am experiencing when I'm talking to our customers is very clear that everyone understands that this is not a flyby sort of innovation. This is here to stay, and it's only going to get better, and it's going to impact us whether we want us or not. And so the better we are at it, the more we lean in, and if we are along in this journey, we're going to be collectively better than trying for it to play out and then suddenly wake up one day and say that we're going to come on board with this. You've got to be in this journey, experimenting, learning, and all of that stuff. Um, so there are some customers who fully grok it, who fully understand it, who are fully getting the value of this, and there are other customers that we're having to sort of show them. And the beauty of a platform like Asana AI Studio now is that it doesn't take a lot of time from ideation all the way to a working prototype. It's very quickly that you're able to showcase something that people can react to and be positively influenced by that, right? And that in itself is such a big shift, not just an advantage for Asana, but for everyone out there, that this life cycle from a problem statement or an ideation to a prototype and then taking it to scale is just compressed so much more.
I wonder with that, right? Because what you mentioned is obviously everyone can agree that AI is going to be part of how we live nowadays, right? But have you ever think to yourself, or even with your customers, have you ever had the discussion of like, which of these really do we need AI for? And what I mean by that is a lot of organizations struggle with AI, right? They put an AI in everything, but sometimes AI doesn't need to be in everything. So do you have those conversations with your customers to like, this doesn't need AI, right? The reason why you can't scale this is because this is not an AI problem, right?
Yeah.
Or do you think that everything needs AI?
No, I wouldn't say at this point in time that everything needs AI, clearly, but I think being curious around this and being able to experiment and see the possibilities is the important input that I would provide to this. There are some use cases that are more ready for AI. There are others that are perhaps not as ready for AI. You've heard it, I'm sure, as others, that customer support, customer service is is ripe for disruption with generative AI. Marketing, translation, content creation. There's a lot that AI is doing around in that space as well, right? We internally at Asana, leveraging our Asana AI Studio, created an agent which takes all of the data from within Asana, and through our growth and impact cycle, GNI, the performance review cycle, as managers, we're required to write a review for our directs. It's now able to create a first version of that, because all of that data sits within Asana of the work that you and I have been doing. If I'm your manager, I'm able to generate through that agent a summary of a performance review as well, and show then as a manager, I'm going to review that and I'm going to accept it or modify it. But that's another example of, one wouldn't obviously think of AI as a thing that could have helped with that. But because we were curious, because we were leaning in, it so happened that this has become quite an impressive and interesting use case that's truly helping people at scale. Now, just imagine if you have 6 or 8 people to write your reviews for, you've shrunk that time and you got better quality output in that review because it's data backed as opposed to just feelings and opinions that you might have.
I wonder for your enterprise customers, how can they build strong foundations for agentic AI? And then I also was wondering, as you're speaking, about the error rate, right? Because we have agents, right? But we all know that with agents, with generative AI, there's hallucinations. So for Asana AI Studio, what happens when the studio hallucinates? So those
Yeah.
are my two questions.
Yeah. So two questions. So the first one, as enterprise customers, I think what I'm seeing is every customer that I talk to wants to learn more. Some might be further along and might be doing and productionizing use cases. Some might be in early on stage experimenting and trying to learn. But that's such a tailwind in itself, right? That at this point in time, people are looking to do something with generative AI. There are budgets that are created to do more with generative AI. Now, whether that's net new budget being added or whether that's budget being uh, uh, saved from elsewhere and redirected to generative AI. So that clearly is a tailwind, right? Um, the other thing that you were talking about, error rate and hallucination, I think that's where we strongly believe that this magic around our work graph data model, which creates structure to the work that you do. As a CIO, as an IT leader, I will be the first one to say AI is only as good as the data. If your data quality is not good, then AI is going to give you erroneous results. It is going to hallucinate, right? But that's where when I think of Asana AI Studio and when I think about the foundation behind all of that is the data model. It's a structured data model, right from tasks to projects to portfolios to company level goals and everything across. You have captured the the map of the work, right? And then your the hallucination that you receive is much lesser. And yes, you can train it and you can make it better. Uh, but when you got data fidelity and data quality at a better level, the results are obviously going to get better. Customers also need to understand, this is true for everyone out there, expecting AI to be already perfect. In some cases, it might be more perfect than others, but that's also an unrealistic expectation in how early it is in its journey. So that's why that human plus AI, that's why that accountability with the human is still very, very important.
How do you handle like fears and uncertainties about generative AI? And how do you help your customers deal with those?
Yeah. Let me maybe just talk a little bit about our internal journey within Asana when we um, started experiencing Gen AI and we had to work with our workforce to sort of take them through this journey. Um, very early on, from the leadership standpoint, we made it very clear to all our employees that hey, we are an AI first company. We're looking to invest in AI. We're looking to invest in our people to be more ready to experience the goodness of AI. Um, and through all of last year, we um, we did a fair bit of enablement, training, uh, hackathons, and programs where we could take people along on that journey. At the start of the year, we actually also ended up doing a survey which helped us understand where is our workforce in terms of their readiness for to consume or be part of this AI. Some people were right the frontiers of being champions. Some were naysayers. Some were skeptics. Some were curious, and we then created programs to take people along on that journey. And at the end of the year, we measured and we saw a marked sort of movement and shift for our people to be more leaning into AI. Some again being champions, some not, but fewer naysayers and skeptics. Now I'll just pivot and talk a little bit about from a customer standpoint. Again, depending on the industry, there are some customers who don't want to be on the bleeding edge. They don't want to be on the leading edge. They want to just follow the journey later on as well, right? So depending where they are, you then talk to them about how AI can benefit them. Um, it's not something that I find anyone being surprised with. Everyone at this stage is beyond that phase wherein whether they believe there's promise and potential in this. I think everyone does understand that. Now, depending on your risk appetite, you might not be ready to consume the hallucinations as Esther you were talking about it, or you can sort of still work through that. And what we do is we work with our customers and try to understand the kind of possible problems that Asana AI Studio can solve for them, and and work with them in showcasing how we're sort of bringing value through those conversations. And as I said, with a low code, no code platform, it becomes very easy to sort of go from ideation to a prototype. And our reactions have just been, what we receive from our customers is sort of eye opening and jaw dropping in many ways, wherein they feel that, hey, this is something that they can certainly leverage and take advantage of.
Perfect. So our final question is how do you expect AI to evolve?
It's evolving so fast, and as Sean, you and I were talking about this as well, that the pace of innovation with AI is so mind-boggling and so fast that it's not about quarters out or weeks out. Things are changing on a day-to-day basis. And while I do not want to make a guess on how things are going to be too far out in the future, um, I do know that if you are sort of plugged in and trying to stay current, which is, by the way, not easy with things changing so fast, it's just too much of a noise as well, right? How do you still stay abreast and stay current is very important. You hear from folks like Jensen Huang talking about English becoming a new programming language, or talking about how AI agents in the future are not just assistants who are going to be doing things, but these are agents that can reason and have a conversation with you, and then collectively sort of make things better. Or Satya Nadella more recently talked about how the experience layer or the CRUD or the application layer, which you and I have been so used to experiencing in enterprise software, how's that going to all transform with the introduction of AI agents into the workforce? So those are all possibilities. The one thing that I'm quite confident about is AI is already making huge benefits, game-changing benefits for anyone who's sort of leading it. And the future of the workforce is not just a human workforce; it is a human and an AI coming together workforce. Um, so that would be my sort of way of thinking about the future.
All right. Well, thanks so much for that. And Sakin, thanks for joining the Targeting AI podcast. To our viewers and listeners, you can you get the podcast on all the major podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, etc., or on the Informatech Target page. And you can find Saket over at Asana. And we appreciate your support of our podcast. Thank you.
To hear the full audio podcast, please go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, Audible, TuneIn, Podbean, and other popular podcast platforms.